I stood there, my hands trembling around the handkerchief, as my daughter leaned in close and whispered, "Don't cry, you're next." The words hit me like a cold slap, echoing through the air of my brother's funeral. It wasn't just the loss of Gordon that hurt. It was the realization that the woman I raised, the daughter I gave everything to, was already counting my last days. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The sun pressed down like a weight, thick and dry and suffocating even in the shade of the canopy tent. Martha Keene stood near the front row of folding chairs at the cemetery, a handkerchief tight in one hand, the other resting stiffly at her side. Beneath her dark sunglasses, her eyes were trained on the casket, Gordon's casket, as if staring hard enough might rewind the morning or slow the quiet crumble of the life she'd built. The priest said something about service and honor, about peace and legacy, but it came to Martha like distant wind. None of it mattered now. Gordon was gone, her last close sibling, her last ally from the old world, the only one who remembered their childhood in full. There was no one left who knew the whole map. Then, without warning, Anna leaned in. Martha caught the scent of her daughter's perfume, too sharp, citrusy, over-applied, and then the words, soft as silk and cold as steel. "Don't cry, you're next." Martha didn't move, not a flinch. But inside, something shifted, like a lock clicking closed. She turned her head just slightly, catching the edge of Anna's face. Her lips were curled into something resembling a smile, but her eyes were distant, detached, as though the funeral were merely a step in some larger plan. Martha didn't answer. She didn't need to. The damage was already done. The service ended with the muted clink of military honors, one final salute to Gordon's decorated years. Then, as the flag was folded and passed, the guests began to drift toward their cars, into the dry Fresno heat. Carla Monroe appeared at Martha's side like clockwork, her heels crunching on gravel, dark sunglasses perched like armor. "I saw that lean in," she muttered. "She didn't hug you, she hovered. You know what that means." Martha said nothing, just adjusted her sunglasses and started walking. Carla kept pace. "She's circling, Martha, same way people do when a house goes up for sale, smiling, nodding, already measuring the rooms." The reception was held in Gordon's small home on the northeast side of town, one story with creaking floorboards and a sun-bleached porch. A slow parade of mourners filed through the front door, carrying foil-topped casseroles, offering tight smiles and shoulder squeezes. Inside, the air conditioning labored, ticking loudly with every breath. Martha stood by the kitchen window, her drink untouched, eyes on the old oak tree in the backyard, the one she and Gordon had once climbed as kids, back when the world was wider and time felt infinite. Behind her, voices floated like rising steam. Anna's voice, too loud, just enough to be overheard. "I'm not worried," she was saying to a cousin. "Once Mom's gone, everything's ours. Gordon's house, his accounts. She can't take it with her. Might as well be patient." Martha froze, fingers tightening around her glass. The cousin chuckled nervously. "You think she's planning to leave it all to you?" "She doesn't have anyone else," Anna said, laughing under her breath. "She's too proud to say it, but I'm all that's left." Martha set the glass down on the windowsill. Slowly, carefully, she turned just enough to see Anna, radiant in her black dress, standing like a woman already counting the silver. Lila stood near her mother, quiet and small, stirring the last of a soda with a plastic straw, her eyes locked on her grandmother across the room. Carla appeared beside Martha, whispering low, "You heard. I heard. What now?" Martha didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her purse, pulled out a small notebook, and wrote down the time, the date, and Anna's words, each one carved in ink like a line across a grave. The scent of baked ham, onion casserole, and lukewarm coffee clung to the walls of Gordon's dining room, like ghosts reluctant to leave. Martha sat at the head of the table, in his chair, though she hadn't meant to. It just happened. The seat gave under her slowly, creaking like it recognized her weight, but not her right to be there. Around her, the food was already half picked through, plastic wrap peeled back, deviled eggs drying at the edges. A pie fork lay discarded in a crust with one bite taken. Grief had come and gone, replaced by small talk and measured glances. Anna stood near the sideboard, one hand on her hip, the other gesturing with a half-empty wineglass. Her voice had taken on the performative cadence Martha knew too well. The faux concerned daughter tone that played well in rooms with an audience, but held no substance once the door closed. "She's slowing down," Anna told a cousin, voice just loud enough to drift to the table. "I'm not trying to be cruel, but she won't last alone. It's not safe anymore." The cousin, some distant niece from Porterville, gave a tight smile. "She seemed steady to me." Anna waved it off. "That's because she won't show weakness. She never has. But I see it. She forgets things. She repeats stories. I mean, we're talking about someone who still balances her checkbook with a pencil." At the table, Martha said nothing, just reached for her glass of water, the condensation cool against her palm. She took a sip, watching the room like a warden in her old days, clocking movement, posture, intent. The way Anna's eyes flicked toward Gordon's china cabinet, the way she lingered too long at the framed family photo near the hallway. Lila sat across from her, poking at a cube of Jell-O with the end of her straw. She hadn't spoken all afternoon, but her eyes, wide, still, thoughtful, never left Martha. That silence said more than words would have. Carla slipped in from the kitchen, whispering behind the rim of a paper plate stacked with buttered rolls. "She's circling you again," she murmured. "Start writing, Martha. Every detail. Don't trust your memory. Trust." The ink Martha nodded, slow and deliberate. She reached into her purse and pulled out the small black notebook. Opened to a blank page. Scribbled the date at the top, March 14th. Underlined it twice. "Anna, 3:17 p.m. Told cousin I'm declining. Said I can't live alone." Same line she used when she tried to talk Gordon into hospice care he didn't need. Tone, rehearsed, measured, opportunistic. She capped the pen and folded the notebook back into her purse as Anna walked by, pausing at the edge of the table with a sweet but firm smile. "Mom, we're all heading out. You're okay to get home, right?" Martha looked up. "You brought me here," Anna shrugged. "Right, but I thought maybe Carla could drive you back. I've got Lila and a call with my client in 15. I didn't plan for the extra time." Martha stared at her, expression blank. "You planned the reception." "Exactly," Anna replied, tone light. "It's been a lot. I just need to decompress." Without waiting for confirmation, she grabbed Lila's arm and headed for the front door. "Say goodbye to Grandma." Lila turned mid-step, her voice barely audible. "Bye, Grandma." Martha raised a hand in a small wave. Carla walked her to the car minutes later, jaw set like she was chewing glass. "No ride, on funeral day. That girl's got nerves like steel tongs," Carla muttered. The drive back to Martha's house was silent, except for the low hum of the air conditioner. The sun was already beginning to soften into gold. When they pulled up to the curb, Martha stepped out, straightened her skirt, and walked to her mailbox. The door hung crooked. Pride. The metal bent slightly where someone had jammed a tool in. Not hard enough to destroy it, but just enough to leave a message. Inside, nothing. Not a scrap. Not even a flyer. Martha stared for a long moment, then glanced at the pry marks again. Someone had gone looking for something, and she knew exactly who had the motive. The torn envelope lay like an accusation on Martha's kitchen table, slashed clean across the top, its contents conspicuously absent. The return address, Wells United Bank, stood bold and centered, printed in the crisp, impersonal typeface reserved for official business. Martha knew what it had been. Gordon's final account summary. He'd banked there for years, and with the estate transfer underway, she had been expecting it. Now it was gone. She sat down, staring at the flap like it might confess. Her fingers brushed the uneven edge. It wasn't a rip born of impatience. It was deliberate, precise. Someone had used a blade. She picked up her landline and dialed before she could talk herself out of it. Anna answered on the third ring, her voice bright and fake. "Hey, Mom. Just getting Lila ready for school pictures tomorrow. What's up?" "My mail was tampered with," Martha said, flat. "A bank envelope. It arrived ripped open, and the summary's missing." "See." Pause. Then, "Are you serious?" "It's probably just some punk kid trying to fish for credit card offers. You know how teenagers are." "Not in my neighborhood," Martha said. "We know each other's cars, and no kid out here's hunting for Gordon's pension." Anna let out a breath, the performative kind. "Mom, you're being paranoid. Maybe it got damaged in the truck. You're upset. This is stress talking." Click. Martha didn't respond. She simply ended the call and immediately redialed. This time, the number Victor Ramos had scrawled on a yellow post-it the day of Gordon's service. He picked up with that same, dry, clipped tone. "Ramos. It's Martha Keene. I need to confirm something. Did the bank send out Gordon's veteran benefit summary this week?" "They did. Wednesday." A rustle of papers. "It was addressed to you. Gordon named you as sole beneficiary. The final disbursement paperwork was inside." Martha exhaled slowly. "Then someone else got to it first." She explained the torn envelope, the missing contents, the timing. Victor's response came cold and clinical. If someone tried to access that account without authorization, and especially if they used his veteran status to do it, we're talking about a potential federal offense. Martha pressed her thumb against the corner of the table. Could Anna have done that? Could she have requested a duplicate? If she forged anything, or even attempted to pass herself off as next of kin to a VA-linked benefit, yes, she could face serious consequences. I'll pull access logs from the bank's side. You'll need to start gathering anything that links her to this. Emails, conversations, anything in writing. By the time the call ended, Martha already had the black notebook open again. She logged the date and time of the torn envelope, her call with Anna, and the confirmation from Victor. Then she rose, moved to the hall closet, and dragged out an old file box from beneath the linens. It was coated in a thin layer of dust, a leftover from her days at the correctional facility. She cleared the top shelf in her hallway closet, slid the box in, and used a permanent marker to label the front. Anna, active. That evening, Carla arrived with a grocery bag in one hand and a bottle of white wine in the other. She took one look at Martha's face and said, "Show me the damage." Martha handed her the envelope. Carla turned it in her hands like a crime scene. "Get copies," Carla said. "Every page she ever touched, every receipt, every email she's ever sent you about money. You're not saving memories anymore. You're building a case." The next morning, Martha opened her front door to a man in a navy windbreaker with a Wells United logo stitched over the left pocket. "Ma'am, I'm here to inform you we've temporarily frozen Gordon Keene's accounts due to suspicious attempted access. You'll be contacted by our fraud unit within 48 hours. Martha nodded, thanked him, and watched the man walk back to his truck. She closed the door behind her, slid the bolt, and opened her notebook again. Line by line, her daughter's intentions were writing themselves into evidence. Martha slid the thick envelope across Victor's desk, its edges worn from handling. Inside, Gordon's original will, signed, witnessed, notarized. Every page was intact, every clause unambiguous. Victor thumbed through it without speaking, his eyes moving quickly over the language he already knew by heart. The office smelled faintly of stale coffee and toner, a smell Martha now associated with truth. When he looked up, his voice was final. "He left everything to you. No joint heirs, no contingencies. His intentions were clean." Martha gave a short nod. "I knew he wouldn't have left it open-ended. He planned everything." That afternoon, she stepped into the sun outside Victor's strip mall office, clutching the manila folder like it contained oxygen. The Fresno heat pressed down, dry and steady, making the sidewalks shimmer. By the time she reached her car, her phone buzzed with a text from Anna. "We need to talk about what's fair." Martha didn't respond. Fair had died with Gordon. At the house later, Anna barged in uninvited, her voice clipped. "So that's it? You're just keeping it all?" Martha stood calmly at the kitchen counter, slicing tomatoes with deliberate precision. "It was his will, not mine." "You don't think it's wrong that his only niece gets nothing?" Anna barked, arms crossed tight. "He didn't even know you were still working on that damn garden together. I was there every Tuesday. You could have been too." Anna scoffed, her eyes darting to the paperwork on the table. "He was vulnerable. He was old. You probably pressured him." From the hallway, Lila lingered in the shadow of the archway. She didn't speak, just listened, her gaze flicking from her mother's fury to her grandmother's stillness. Victor's voice echoed from memory. "Don't defend what's already documented." So Martha said nothing. Later that night, as she packed away documents, Carla arrived with her paralegal-grade patience and a plastic tub of lemon cookies. "Deep breaths," Carla muttered, flipping open the will and laying it next to a second copy. "We'll get these notarized again. If she's going to play games, we'll play defense with ink and notaries." They worked through the night at Martha's dining room table, the overhead light casting soft gold across the table's dark grain. Carla stacked folders into 2 piles, one labeled filed, the other to serve. At midnight, when the house was quiet, Lila slipped into the room barefoot and silent. Her hair was damp from a bath. She held out a folded piece of notebook paper. Martha dried her hands on a dish towel before taking it. Lila didn't say a word, just looked at her with the sad kind of knowing children weren't supposed to carry. Martha opened the note. The handwriting was unmistakably Lila's. "Mom says you're selfish. She says you tricked Uncle Gordon." Martha met Lila's eyes. "Do you believe that?" Lila shook her head, slow and small. "I just didn't want her to tear it up before you saw it." Carla took the paper, slid it into a sheet protector, and filed it without a word. "She's using the kid," Carla muttered. "Classic projection, but you know what this is now, right?" Martha looked at her friend. "A setup." Carla nodded once. "And we're going to beat it." The next morning, a beige envelope appeared in Martha's mailbox, legal-sized. County seal in the corner. Victor opened it for her in his office, reading slowly, his jaw tightened. "She's filed a petition. She's contesting the will." Martha exhaled through her nose and looked out the window. Fresno's flat skyline offered no comfort, just strip malls and sun. "She's going to try to unwrite his life," she said quietly. "But I have every receipt." Victor set the document down. "Then let's take her to court, paper for paper." And so began the first official move in a war Martha never wanted, but was more than ready to win. The courtroom was cool and colorless, all beige walls and humming fluorescents. But Martha felt the heat of betrayal thicken her collar. She sat still at the plaintiff's table, hands folded over her black leather-bound planner. The same planner that now carried 3 months' worth of dates, transcripts, bank slips, and one folded note from her granddaughter. Anna wore a sharp navy blazer and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. When the bailiff called the session to order, she stepped forward, heels clicking on linoleum, and began spinning her version of the truth. "My uncle was vulnerable," she told the judge, voice tinged with just enough tremble to seem convincing. "My mother isolated him, pressured him. She got him to change his will after years of being estranged." Martha didn't flinch. She knew the look Anna was aiming for, concerned daughter, misunderstood advocate. It might have worked if not for Victor. He rose slowly, papers in hand, and spoke with that deliberate, razor-edged calm Martha had come to trust. "Your Honor, the decedent's will was drafted over a year ago, with notarized statements confirming his full mental clarity. He lived independently until his passing. He named one heir, his sister, Ms. Keene. There was no coercion." The judge leaned forward, brow raised. "You're saying he took those steps of his own volition?" Victor passed over the bundle, certified signatures, video transcripts. A witness affidavit from Gordon's longtime neighbor. I'm saying there's no ambiguity and no legal grounds to contest. Anna's mouth tightened. Her fingers twitched slightly at her sides. The judge flipped through the file, frowning at the thoroughness. This is airtight, Ms. Keene. He turned to Anna now, tone sharpening. Bringing a claim like this without evidence wastes the court's time. Motion denied. A low breath escaped from Carla beside Martha, a sound halfway between relief and vindication. She reached over and squeezed Martha's hand. Round one's yours, she whispered, her voice like gravel wrapped in silk. Martha didn't smile. She only nodded once, watching her daughter's face flush with frustration. Outside the courtroom, the heat returned, Fresno sun pouring down, unforgiving. Victor peeled off to speak with a clerk, and Carla suggested a celebratory sandwich at the corner deli. But Lila tugged gently on Martha's sleeve. Can I ride with you? They walked side by side through the courthouse lot, the asphalt practically shimmering. Lila was quiet, steps slow. I heard Mom say you tricked Uncle Gordon, she murmured, eyes downcast. But then I saw the papers, the ones Mr. Ramos showed. I didn't know she was lying. Martha stopped and turned to her. You don't have to choose sides, baby, but you do have to notice the truth when it's in front of you. Lila nodded. I'm sorry. That night, the house was too quiet. Martha busied herself with folding laundry and reorganizing her filing cabinet. She reread Gordon's will just to feel solid again. Carla had promised to drop off an extra lock for the garage in the morning. At 10:43 p.m., the front door opened. Not knocked. Opened. Anna stood there, suitcase in hand, a forced smile creeping across her face. Surprised, she said too brightly. I figured since we've got so much to sort out, I should just stay here a while. Help out. Martha blinked, stunned. Help with what? Anna breezed past her without waiting for permission, heels clicking across hardwood. Groceries, bills. You're not exactly in your prime anymore, Mom. The words landed like slaps. Martha followed her into the hall, jaw clenched. Anna had already opened the spare room door and tossed her suitcase inside. Just until we get this inheritance thing straightened out. It's all a misunderstanding anyway. No hard feelings, right? Martha stood in the hall, hands at her sides. Her house, her keys, her rules. Now a stage for something darker. Upstairs, Lila's door creaked open. She peeked down the hallway, eyes wide. Anna noticed too. She smiled at her daughter like a snake pretending to purr. We're going to be one big happy family again. Martha said nothing, but her fingers itched toward her planner, the one with every word, every date, every move Anna didn't think she'd notice. And as the guest room door clicked shut, Martha knew exactly what she had to do next. The first thing Anna did was move the sugar bowl. Martha stood in the doorway of her own kitchen, arms crossed, watching her daughter rearrange drawers like a new tenant claiming territory. The clink of spoons, the rustle of paper towel rolls being yanked from the cabinet. Anna moved with the smug efficiency of someone pretending to help while laying traps. Just trying to streamline things, Mom, Anna said, without turning. You've got half-expired meds cluttering this whole shelf. What if you mix them up? Martha said nothing. Her eyes dropped to the trash can, where a familiar orange pill bottle now lay sideways, cap cracked open. Her heart kicked once. Those weren't expired. They were her blood pressure meds. Anna glanced back, caught the stare, and offered a saccharine smile. Oops. Don't worry, I'll call the pharmacy and get you a fresh set. That night, while Anna loudly watched a true crime show from the guest room, Martha installed a discreet camera in the corner of the living room. Tucked behind a decorative vase, angled just so, it covered the hallway, kitchen, and front door. She didn't need confrontation. She needed evidence. By morning, Anna had already added her name to the mailbox in thick black Sharpie. Carla came by later, bearing donuts and unasked for wisdom. She perched at the kitchen counter, peeling the paper off a glazed twist. Don't react to her, she murmured. eyes tracking Anna as she noisily rearranged canned goods in the pantry. Reacting gives her ammunition. Let her think she's winning. Martha nodded slowly. I'm documenting. Every hour. Every word. Carla smiled grimly. That's the woman I know. It was Lila who brought the first real warning. Late at night, when the house creaked and settled and the TV was finally silent, a soft knock came at Martha's bedroom door. She opened it to find her granddaughter barefoot in pajamas, face pale in the hallway light. I heard her on the phone, Lila whispered, glancing back. She told someone she wants to start the listing process soon. Martha's breath caught. For the house? She asked, already knowing. Lila nodded. She said, Mom's got one foot in the grave, the other on a banana peel. I just need to nudge the court a little. Martha's spine straightened. Thank you, sweetheart. You did right. After Lila returned to bed, Martha sat at her desk, opening the drawer that now held a second planner, this one labeled contingency. Every change in tone, every offhand comment, every time Anna forgot to replace the milk or accidentally locked Martha out of the Wi-Fi, it all went in. The next morning, she called Victor Ramos. She's escalated, Martha said, skipping pleasantries. Victor's voice was flat but urgent. It's time to file a guardianship defense, and we need to secure your medical records, clean, recent ones. I'm already scheduling an exam, tomorrow. Good. Meanwhile, secure your accounts. Move your primary assets out of shared access. Quietly. They met that afternoon in Victor's small, sunlit office tucked between a nail salon and a bail bond office. Martha handed him a folder labeled Anna, Phase 1. He flipped through the contents with a flicker of a smile. This is excellent. You've already done half my work. No, Martha said, watching the dust float in a beam of sunlight. I've only just started. She returned home to silence, the kind of quiet that wasn't peaceful, just paused. On the kitchen table, sealed in a blue envelope, was a stack of papers with her name printed in bold. A note in Anna's swirling handwriting rested on top. This is for your protection. Love, Anna. Martha's hands didn't shake as she peeled the flap open, but her jaw did clench. Petition for power of attorney. Filed under the claim that Martha was exhibiting signs of mental deterioration and poor judgment regarding estate decisions. Anna's signature was stamped cleanly at the bottom, and just like that, the battle lines weren't implied anymore. They were filed. Stamped. Delivered. Martha didn't blink. She picked up the envelope, walked to her room, and slid it into the file box already labeled Phase 2. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't storm down the hallway. She sat quietly at her desk, and she started planning how to burn this entire attempt, legally, precisely, to the ground. The moment Martha received the envelope from the county clerk, she didn't flinch. She folded it neatly, set it beside her tea, and dialed Victor. Power of attorney petition, she said, steady but sharp. Anna claims I'm declining mentally. She's filed under concern for my well-being. Victor sighed through the receiver. Then we meet this head-on. Full transparency. You up for a mental health evaluation? I'm not the one hiding withdrawals, she said. Schedule it. 3 days later, she sat across from a court-appointed evaluator in a sunlit room at the downtown senior center. It smelled faintly of lemon polish and old carpet. The examiner, a no-nonsense woman in a gray blazer, clicked her pen twice before beginning. Ms. Keene, do you know why you're here today? I do, Martha replied. My daughter believes I'm incompetent. I disagree, and I have proof. The woman blinked. Let's start with some basics. Martha recited her full legal name, birth date, social security number, home address, and the date of her brother's passing. Then she listed the 7 medications she took, name, dosage, refill schedule, before transitioning into her meal routine, sleep cycle, and how to reset her Wi-Fi router. She even explained calmly how she was documenting financial mismanagement tied directly to her daughter. And you believe your daughter is pursuing control for... Not for care, Martha said. For access. After 90 minutes, The evaluator stood, extended her hand, and said, "You're sharper than most of the attorneys I interview." Martha only smiled. "I used to work in a prison. Reading people kept me alive." Back in the waiting room, Anna sat on a molded plastic chair, legs crossed, scrolling on her phone. When the evaluator passed her without a glance, Anna looked up. "Well?" she asked. The woman didn't stop walking. "Your mother's fit. Report will be submitted by end of day." Anna stared after her, lips tightening into a thin line. Victor joined Martha in the hallway seconds later. His briefcase clicked shut with finality. "We're submitting a counter motion this afternoon. That's one for your column." They walked out into the parking lot, where the Fresno sun beat down heavy and dry. The blacktop shimmered. Carla was already waiting in her car nearby, engine idling, windows rolled down. "How'd she do?" she called out. Victor gave a thumbs up. Carla grinned. "That's checkmate already." That night, back home, Martha made chamomile tea and added the day's events to her notebook. Lila sat on the floor beside her, sketching a rose on a torn brown grocery bag. "She was mad," Lila said quietly. "When you came out of the room, she looked like she was going to break something." "She'll try something else," Martha murmured. "That kind of hunger doesn't stop." At 3:11 a.m., Martha woke to a gut-deep sense that something was wrong. She didn't hear a sound, just the absence of one. The soft hum of the fridge was still there, the fan creaking slowly from the hallway. But something had shifted. She reached for her phone and tapped into her banking app. The screen loaded slowly. Then it showed. Joint account balance, 12 cents, recent transaction. $7,640 withdrawal. 2:03 a.m. ATM, Bullard Avenue. Her breath left her chest like a punch. She rose, opened her dresser drawer, and retrieved the spare check register, flipping back through entries she'd color-coded with surgical care. None of the withdrawals matched Martha's handwriting. She opened the second drawer, lifted the lining, and found her debit card gone. The living room was dark but warm from the lingering heat of the day. On the hallway floor sat her purse, unzipped, askew. She bent and opened it slowly. No wallet, no card. Her heart beat slow but hard, like the barrel of a loaded gun clicking into place. The camera. She opened the app. And there she was. Anna. Purse slung over one shoulder, barefoot, tiptoeing past the kitchen toward the back door, card in hand. The timestamp matched. By sunrise, Martha had already called Victor, the bank, and the sheriff's department. The funds were frozen, the footage archived. In her planner, beneath the words, "Court Evaluation, Passed," she added a new line in black ink, stole everything when she couldn't take control. The call came just before dawn, slicing through the quiet like a blade. "This is Jennifer from Valley Bank. Ms. Keene, we're calling to verify a 2 a.m. withdrawal of $3,200 from your joint checking account. Was that you?" Martha stared at the phone. Her body remained still, but her voice lowered. Clipped. "Number." "It wasn't." "Thank you. I'll initiate a fraud flag immediately." She ended the call and sat on the edge of her bed, the room still cloaked in shadows. Her toes touched the floor, bare against the cold tile. On the dresser, the edge of her planner caught the moonlight. She reached for it slowly and wrote one word. Stolen. Down the hallway, the sound of the faucet running echoed briefly, then silence. Martha rose and moved to the kitchen, her nightgown brushing softly against her ankles. She passed Anna's room without pausing, though the light beneath the door was still glowing faintly. In the kitchen, she picked up her landline and dialed Victor. He answered on the second ring, voice groggy but focused. She took it, Martha said. At 2 a.m., exactly 3200. Camera footage? Yes. And the bank's flagging it now. Good. I'll file an emergency injunction before the court opens. We're going to nail this down before she drains you dry. By 7 a.m., Martha had already printed the transaction history. Carla arrived 15 minutes later, holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing sweatpants with court seals printed down the side. Let's play, Carla said, setting down her laptop. Camera feed? Martha passed her the phone. Together, they watched as Anna appeared on screen. Barefoot, hair tied up, Martha's purse in her hands. She moved like she had done it before, like it wasn't new. She's smooth, Carla muttered, but stupid. Doesn't know the living room cam covers the coat rack. She thought I was asleep. She thought you were weak. At 8:03 a.m., Lila wandered into the kitchen wearing an oversized hoodie and holding her sketchbook. She paused when she saw the screen. That was last night, she said quietly. I heard her leave. Martha looked up. Did you see anything else? Lila hesitated, then nodded. She took your card from your coat pocket. You were asleep on the couch. She didn't know I was still up. Silence settled in the kitchen like dust. Carla handed her a granola bar without speaking. Lila took it with both hands. Thank you for telling me, Martha said, softly. Victor arrived an hour later, legal pad in hand, tie slightly crooked. I filed the injunction, he said. Funds frozen. We're adding this to the original petition and pressing forward with criminal charges. Martha handed him the printed statements, camera screenshots, and the time-stamped bank alerts. I want it airtight, she said. No backdoors, no apologies. You're not just building a case anymore, Victor replied. You're building a wall. By noon, a knock echoed through the house. Firm, official. Lila flinched. Martha opened the door. A sheriff in full uniform stood there, sunglasses on, badge glinting. Ma'am, he said, is Anna Keene home? She's in the back room, Martha replied calmly. Down the hall, second door. He nodded. She's being served. Martha stepped aside. Carla didn't speak. Lila held her breath. 2 minutes later, Anna emerged from the hallway, wrapped in a robe, hair wild, eyes burning. What the hell is this? She snapped, waving the paperwork. Summons for suspected financial exploitation, the sheriff answered flatly. You can't be serious. It's serious enough for the DA to review, he cut in. You'll want an attorney. Anna turned to Martha, disbelief carved deep in her face. You really did this? Martha said nothing. She just stood there, shoulders square, chin high, and eyes as unreadable as a locked safe. Martha stood beneath the cold fluorescent lights of Fresno County Courtroom 2C, the air stale with decades of bitterness and bureaucracy. She adjusted the cuffs of her blouse, fingers steady despite the weight of eyes behind her. Anna sat at the opposite table, arms folded, eyes rimmed with irritation, wearing a blazer she hadn't earned and a smirk that cracked around the edges. Victor stood, buttoned up and meticulous, every document precisely placed before him. Your Honor, he began, voice crisp and unhurried. We present documented withdrawals totaling $10,840.04, unauthorized by Ms. Keene. Surveillance footage corroborates the withdrawals were made while my client was asleep. Medical evaluations confirm full mental competency. Handwritten notes, security cam logs, and timestamps all align. He clicked a remote. The courtroom screen lit up with grainy black and white footage, Anna slipping Martha's card from her purse. Another click showed a time-stamped bank statement. Another click, a still of Anna at an ATM. The judge, a stout woman with a skeptical brow and a black robe that seemed to swallow her whole, leaned forward. This footage has been authenticated. Victor nodded. By Valley Bank's Fraud Investigation Unit. We've also included a witness affidavit from Ms. Monroe, corroborating patterns of intimidation and isolation. Anna snorted. So now I'm a thief because I helped my own mother pay bills? Miss Keene, the judge warned. You'll wait your turn, Victor resumed. We also submit the petitioner's attempt to gain power of attorney through deception. Immediately following the contested withdrawals, Anna slammed her palm on the table. I was protecting her. She's old, forgetful. She passed her court-ordered competency exam, Victor interrupted, without turning. With flying colors. Silence dropped like a gavel. The judge tapped her pen against the wood. I've reviewed the file. The evidence is overwhelming. Financial exploitation, attempted coercion of power of attorney, and use of a joint account without consent. Anna's chair screeched back as she stood. This is insane. She's manipulating you all. She wants me gone because I won't worship her memory of Gordon. Bailiff Jones stepped forward, one hand casually resting near his holster. Sit down, Ms. Keene, the judge ordered. Her voice steel now. Anna didn't. Instead, she pointed at Martha. You should be thanking me. You're nothing without people checking in on you. You're alone, and you know it. The gavel cracked once. Bailiff! Jones crossed the room in 3 strides and guided Anna firmly back into her chair. Her voice cracked once before it dissolved into muttered swears. Martha didn't blink. She didn't lean forward or gloat. She simply rose and said, She left me shivering at a funeral. She made sure I got home alone. I won't forget that. Lila sat in the gallery's front row, hands pressed to her lap, a tear balancing on the edge of her chin. When the judge signed the restraining order, barring Anna from the house, from the accounts, from Martha entirely, Lila let her palms meet in a quiet clap. The sound echoed louder than it should have in the courtroom's hard walls. Martha stepped down from the stand, passing Anna without a glance. In the hallway outside, Victor exhaled. You did everything right, clean, honest, thorough. She's not done, Martha said, already pulling out her notebook. She'll appeal, Victor confirmed, tapping his folder, and we'll be ready. It arrived folded in a manila envelope, slid beneath Martha's front door like a snake in daylight. The word appeal glared from the top sheet in heavy, bold print, ink so dark it bled slightly through the back. Martha read every word in silence, seated at the kitchen table while sunlight crawled slowly across the tile floor. Her tea went cold. The letter reeked of desperation, claims of forged evidence, manipulated footage, and a mother unfit to manage her own affairs. Anna's tone dripped with indignation, accusing Martha and Victor of collusion against the rightful heir. By the time Victor arrived, she'd already highlighted every false claim. She's trying to turn the judge's head, Martha said, tapping the line about mental decline. But I've still got the evaluation results. Still dated, still notarized. Victor took the documents from her and gave a single nod. We're not fighting her in the dark. We're dragging her lies into the sun. The courthouse lobby smelled of dust and old air conditioning. A single oscillating fan tried and failed to keep the tension cool. Martha sat upright, her folder balanced on her lap. Anna swept into the courtroom 20 minutes late, wearing a wrinkled gray suit and no makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a haphazard twist. She didn't look like someone wronged. She looked like someone unraveling. Judge Ramirez raised a brow before Anna even spoke. Ms. Kine, the judge said dryly, I've reviewed your motion. He turned a page. You're accusing your mother of fraud, after already being served a restraining order based on documented theft. Anna opened her mouth, but Victor stood first. Your Honor, we've submitted certified medical records, dated both prior and post-incident, confirming Ms. Martha Keene's mental fitness. We've included the unedited video footage, chain of custody logs, and bank correspondence verifying the timeline of events. He walked toward the bench, handed over the organized folder. We also respectfully submit that this appeal is retaliatory in nature, not substantive. Judge Ramirez didn't even open the folder. He tapped the original ruling with the end of his pen. Appeal denied. Immediate enforcement of all prior orders stands. And Ms. Anna Keene, this court strongly advises you to seek legal counsel for your own protection. The gavel's sound was soft, final. Anna froze. For once, she said nothing. As the courtroom cleared, Carla leaned over to Martha. That, she whispered with a sharp smile, is the nail in her coffin. Outside, the air was dry and still, the kind of stillness that comes after a dust storm. Not yet clean, but somehow clearer. Lila stood waiting on the steps, arms crossed, trying not to look scared. When Martha emerged, Lila ran forward and hugged her so tightly that it stole the breath from her lungs. She said she'd win, Lila murmured against her coat. She told me this morning she'd undo everything. She won't, Martha said gently, brushing hair from Lila's cheek. She never will again. Later that afternoon, back in the safety of her living room, Martha pulled out her estate folder. She took a pen, blue ink only, and began updating her will. Victor notarized every line that cut Anna out of her future. No loopholes, no vague language. Just the firm and final protection of her name, her property, and the life she had left. Lila sat at the table with her, pretending to draw. Every so often she looked up with that same quiet watchfulness that reminded Martha of Gordon. When the last page was signed and sealed, Lila stood abruptly. "Please don't send her to jail," she whispered, eyes glassy. "She's my mom." Martha closed the folder gently, her hand resting on it like it was the lid of a grave. She didn't answer right away. Didn't have to. The silence between them was thick with understanding. Mercy didn't always mean forgetting, but it did mean choosing who deserved the final word. The courtroom smelled of lacquered wood and tired air, as though the walls had absorbed generations of decisions. Fair, cruel, and everything in between. Martha sat motionless, her spine a straight line, her hands folded in her lap. Beside her, Victor opened his briefcase with the calm of a man who had seen justice bend but never break. "Do you want restitution or prison?" he asked softly, not looking at her. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared ahead at the defendant's table where Anna sat. Hunched, pale, eyes rimmed in sleepless red. Her daughter looked older than she remembered. Emptier, too. "Restitution," Martha said at last. Her voice didn't shake. "For Lila's sake," Victor gave a small nod, closing the briefcase. "Understood." The judge called the room to order. It wasn't a long proceeding. The facts were solid, the evidence airtight. Footage, transactions, forged signatures, false statements. It was all there, stacked neatly in a case file that now lived in the court's archive forever. Given the plaintiff's request, the judge intoned, "This court will forgo incarceration. Ms. Anna Keene is hereby ordered to repay $19,850 in full, including legal fees, within 12 months. Failure to do so will result in automatic criminal charges." Anna said nothing. She didn't cry, didn't protest. She simply nodded once, curt, robotic, then stared at the floor as though afraid to meet anyone's eyes. Martha didn't look at her as they left. Outside, the sun burned Fresno's concrete, a dull, unyielding beige. The courthouse steps radiated heat through the soles of Martha's shoes as she and Victor descended in silence. Carla was waiting by the car, arms folded, sunglasses perched on her nose like a final judgment. "She got off light," Carla said flatly. "But I suppose mercy doesn't mean forgetting." "No," Martha agreed, unlocking the door. "It doesn't." That evening, Lila helped set the table in silence. She placed the forks with careful symmetry, aligning each one with the edges of the placemats. The sun had gone down, but the heat lingered in the air, seeping through the kitchen windows. Martha poured sweet tea and passed a plate of roasted chicken. Lila hesitated, then reached out and gently touched her grandmother's hand. "Thank you, Grandma," she said. Her voice was small, but steady. Martha squeezed her fingers. "You're welcome." They ate quietly, the scrape of silverware against ceramic the only sound between them. After dinner, Lila went to her room to finish homework, leaving Martha alone at the table, staring out the window into the dark. The backyard looked quiet. The garage, a squat shadow at the edge of the property line. Crickets chirped low and slow, their rhythm almost hypnotic. But something shifted. A sound, faint but wrong, broke the stillness. Martha pushed back her chair, moved to the screen door, and listened. Another faint rustle. A box shifted. Then the dull click of something being opened. The garage. She didn't flip on the floodlight. Instead, she stepped outside, barefoot on concrete, the dry air cooling her arms as she crept toward the door. The scent of fertilizer and dust filled her nose. She reached the garage and peered through the cracked side panel. Inside, Anna crouched over a stack of bins. She rifled through drawers, yanked open cabinets. Her movements were frantic, sloppy. Martha stayed still, watching. Anna found a small locked chest in the corner and tugged on it. Frustrated, she slammed it back down, her breath coming out in harsh puffs. Martha stepped forward, quiet but deliberate. Her voice sliced through the dark like a blade. "You looking for the will?" Anna jumped, nearly stumbling into a shelf. Her face turned toward Martha, wide-eyed, caught, but she didn't speak. "You're not in it," Martha said, stepping fully into the moonlight. "Not anymore." Anna's lips parted, maybe to protest or to beg, but Martha raised a hand to stop her. "Leave, now before I call the sheriff again." There was no yelling, no weeping, just silence, thick, final, like dirt falling into a grave. Anna didn't argue. She backed out of the garage, eyes locked with her mother's the entire way. Martha stood there until the gate latched shut behind her daughter. Then she locked the garage. Twice. And this time, she pocketed the key. The second Martha hung up the call to dispatch, she didn't move from her kitchen window. Outside, the yard was soaked in silver moonlight, and the garage sat silent again, like the scene of a crime only she had witnessed. But inside her chest, something had shifted. Not fear, not sadness, something steelier. The squad car rolled up just past midnight. No lights, no sirens, just the quiet authority of a Fresno officer who'd heard this kind of call before. "She was in your garage," Officer Hines asked, glancing at his notepad. "She wasn't invited," Martha replied flatly. Anna stood near the driveway, arms crossed tightly across her chest, lip curled in practiced indignation. "She's confused," Anna snapped. "It's my childhood home. I was just looking for—" "You were looking to help yourself," Martha cut in. Her voice was calm, not raised, but carried an unmistakable finality. The officer looked between them, then to the small bag Anna had dropped near the side gate. Inside, envelopes, an old prescription bottle with Gordon's name, and Martha's spare garage key. "She'll need to leave the premises," Hines said, turning toward Anna. "And you're officially warned. Any future entry without permission will be treated as criminal trespass." Anna didn't speak, just turned, jaw tight, and walked off into the night without glancing back. By morning, Victor had already drafted the paperwork. "A permanent restraining order will stick better than duct tape," he said, sliding the folder across the table. "Given the financial angle and prior police contact, the judge will fast-track it." Martha didn't blink. "File it." Carla showed up at 10 with a large thermos of coffee, a bag of screwdrivers, and a man named Leon who could change every lock on the property in under an hour. "Smile," Carla told her. "This is what liberation looks like." The old locks clunked off one by one. New ones clicked into place, polished and unfamiliar. Deadbolts, reinforced doorknobs. Even the shed got a digital keypad. Leon also installed 2 motion-activated cameras, one over the back porch, the other pointed at the side entrance. Every corner of the property was now under Martha's gaze. "You'll get alerts straight to your phone," he said, handing her the setup app. "Nothing comes in without you knowing." Martha nodded. "Good. That's how it should have always been." Inside, the house felt different, airier, like something heavy had finally been dragged out into the street and left there. That evening, Lila stood in the hallway with her backpack. "I want to stay here," she said quietly. "With you." Martha looked down at her, searching for any trace of pressure, any flicker of guilt. But Lila's face was steady, young, yes, but certain. "You don't have to decide for her," Martha said. "I already did," Lila whispered. "I'm tired of pretending she's not hurting us." Martha's throat tightened. She opened her arms, and Lila stepped into them without hesitation. They stood like that for a long moment, not speaking. The house didn't just feel safe now. It was safe. 2 days later, Carla marched through the front door with a Fresno Post tucked under her arm. "You might want to see this," she said, slapping the paper onto the table. The headline read, "Local housing officer terminated amid pending theft allegations." Beneath it, Anna's photo, grainy and sharp all at once. Martha didn't flinch. "Guess that's what happens when you file your claws too loudly," Carla muttered, sipping her coffee. Martha folded the paper in half, laid it beside her stack of estate files, and went back to slicing apples for the pie she and Lila planned to bake later. Outside, the security camera blinked red once, then settled. All clear. Martha clicked the pen with a firmness that echoed through the quiet room. The air was still, almost reverent, as Victor Ramos slid the final page of the new will in front of her. Sunlight sliced through the curtains and landed on the polished oak of her dining table, catching on the ink that would sever blood ties, not by anger, but by intent. She signed her name slowly, clearly, with the practiced discipline of someone who had written reports under pressure most of her life. Her hand didn't shake. Her spine stayed straight. The moment wasn't sad. It was surgical. Victor tapped the page, then folded the document neatly into a folder marked Keene Estate Final. "She's cut out fully, permanently," he confirmed. "With this structure, she can't legally contest a cent." Martha nodded once. That's not revenge, it's responsibility. The estate would now pass entirely to Lila upon Martha's death. Not just the house, but all liquid assets, stocks, and her pension savings. A portion would fund a veterans reading room at the Fresno Public Library, complete with a plaque bearing Gordon's name. Another slice would seed a literacy program at the local senior advocacy center. Martha didn't want her life's work buried in court disputes. She wanted it to multiply. Carla leaned over, reading a clause aloud. "No descendant found guilty or credibly accused of financial exploitation shall receive any portion." She whistled. "That's iron." "I know what she'll try next," Martha said, not looking up. "A weepy letter, some story about illness. She won't come clean, she'll come crooked." "And we'll keep the locks tight," Carla replied, standing to grab fresh coffee. "But what you've written here, that's the real lock." Outside, the afternoon sun baked the sidewalk. The breeze smelled faintly of dry grass and distant citrus. It was Fresno in late summer. Warm enough to lull, hot enough to burn. Lila came in through the side door. Cheeks pink, sleeves dusted with volunteer dust from the advocacy center. "They had me organizing folders today," she said, smiling. "But I got to sit in on the intake desk, too. Some of the stories. It's worse than what happened to you." Martha gave her a gentle look, the kind of look only earned through storms. "You're doing something real," she said. "That's legacy, not what we leave behind, but what we teach someone else to carry." Lila nodded, then reached into her backpack. "One of the seniors told me something funny. She said I had your stare, the kind that makes people confess without meaning to." Martha chuckled. "That stare ran in the Keene family long before you." Victor packed his briefcase quietly while they laughed, but before leaving, he turned back. "There's nothing left for Anna here," he said, "and you've legally sealed every door. If she ever tries to pry one open again, we'll be ready before she knocks." "She won't knock," Martha said. "She'll slither." And slither she did, just not in person. 2 weeks later, Anna moved out of Fresno. Word around town was she left in a borrowed van, her pride packed into plastic bins. The theft charges had followed her to every job interview, and her name now triggered alerts on background checks. Martha watched the U-Haul pull away from her neighborhood with no ceremony, no shouting, no apology. Just silence. Fitting. That same week, Martha handed the first check to the library board. The Gordon Keene Literacy Fund would begin with evening programs for veterans struggling with cognitive decline. Later, it would support family literacy nights and trauma-centered reading circles. She planned it all with the precision of someone who used to log inmate behavior in quarter-hour increments. Carla teared up when the scholarship announcement hit the paper. "You made it through the war, Martha, and you still found a way to build something." Martha didn't answer, just passed her friend a napkin and a slice of lemon cake. But peace never lasted long. That evening, after dinner, Lila brought in the mail. Tucked between a phone bill and a fundraising flyer was an envelope with no return address. Handwritten, sharp cursive. Martha didn't need to open it to know. She felt it in her knuckles. She opened it anyway. Inside was a letter, short, desperate, and manipulative. Anna's handwriting was neat, rehearsed. The words were wrapped in humility, but the tone reeked of performance. I know I made mistakes, but I'm still your daughter. One more chance, Mom. Just one more. I'm not asking for money, just a seat at the table again. Martha folded the letter in half, and then in half again. She didn't say a word. Not yet. She didn't laugh. She didn't cry. She simply dropped the letter into the flames. The ink curled first, the loops of Anna's signature blackening before the body of the message. The flames hissed softly as the paper darkened, turning to ash with the same silence Anna had left her with during Gordon's funeral. Behind her, the screen door creaked open. Lila stood barefoot on the step, arms wrapped around herself. "Do you feel better?" she asked. Martha watched the last corner of the letter flake away. "I feel finished," she said. They stood together in the growing dusk, the sky bleeding into purple, then blue, then night. The smell of burning paper drifted with the breeze, acrid but clean, like closure. Later, Victor sat at the dining table, methodically going over the final trust paperwork. The living trust had been transferred, solid and impenetrable. Lila was the sole beneficiary. The Advocacy Center would get quarterly donations. The scholarship in Gordon's name was funded for a decade. "It's done," Victor said, sliding the signed papers into a thick envelope. "Your estate is bulletproof, even if Anna were to hire an army of lawyers." "She'll throw rocks from afar," Martha said. "Let her wear herself out." Victor smiled faintly. "She already has." Carla arrived just after sunset, balancing a glass dish under one arm and a bottle of ginger ale under the other. "Peach cobbler," she announced. "And before you say anything, yes, I used real butter, and yes, I made a backup one for the library staff." Martha let her in with a small smile. They sat together at the kitchen table, the same table where Gordon once played dominoes, where Anna had once scribbled with crayons. Lila joined them, still in her Advocacy Center vest, hair tied back, cheeks flushed from a day of filing and organizing. They ate cobbler and laughed over old stories, Gordon's terrible singing, Ed's habit of fixing things that weren't broken, Carla's brief flirtation with the UPS man 2 summers back. The house felt warmer than it had in years, not from temperature, but from absence, of fear, of doubt, of lurking shadows. "I don't think I've seen you this calm since before Gordon passed," Carla said, sipping her ginger ale. "Peace feels strange when it finally lands," Martha replied, "like a quiet you don't quite trust." Lila leaned her head against Martha's shoulder. "I trust it." They stayed like that, soft and full and finally still, until Martha's back began to ache, and Carla muttered something about stretching before the joints refused to cooperate. After everyone had gone to bed, Martha moved through the house slowly, barefoot, lights dim. She paused at her desk to close her notebook, the one marked Anna, but before she could, something caught her eye. Tucked in the corner of the drawer, folded twice, was an envelope she didn't recognize. She opened it carefully. Inside was a photo. Gordon, young, uniformed, standing beside her at some long-forgotten picnic. Her hair was darker then, and his smile carried the easy arrogance of a man who hadn't yet seen combat. On the back, in faded ink, Gordon's handwriting read, "No matter how loud the world gets, keep the peace in your pocket. G." Martha sat down slowly, the photo still in her hand, and the fire pit, out in the yard, crackled again, one last ember flaring against the wind. The photo rested in its frame now, just to the right of Martha's favorite chair, Gordon's young face caught in mid-laugh, sunlight streaking his brow like a medal earned off the battlefield. The living room had a softness to it now, like it exhaled with her, finally at ease. No shadows in corners, no tension in the walls. She sat with her morning tea, the scent of Earl Grey curling through the room, her thumb grazing the frame's edge. The photo grounded her, not to the past, but to the reason she'd fought so long. To remember who she was before someone tried to write her ending. Down the hallway, Lila's voice bounced between bathroom tiles and the bedroom door as she rehearsed for her first school debate. If justice is reactive, then legacy is proactive, Lila said, pacing. Because what we protect defines who we are. Martha smiled to herself. The girl had found her voice. Outside, Carla knelt in the garden with a floppy straw hat and dirt-streaked gloves. She hummed something low and tuneless while digging her trowel into the earth. Petunias, marigolds, and little blue forget-me-nots stood in line like soldiers on review. The front yard had never looked so alive. A car door shut softly at the curb. Victor Ramos stepped out in his usual charcoal suit, folder tucked neatly beneath his arm. He paused to nod at Carla, who waved him off with a muddy glove, and climbed the steps with a slow, steady gait. Inside, he handed Martha the final documents. "It's done," he said. "Your estate is sealed. Your trust is untouchable. Lila's future, the hotline, the scholarship, all legally protected." "Good," Martha said, thumbing through the final signatures. "I'm not leaving any cracks behind." Victor tilted his head, a rare softness in his eyes. "You've done more than secure your name. You've started something that outlives you." She glanced toward the open window. Somewhere down the street, a lawnmower buzzed like an anxious fly. The air smelled of jasmine and turned soil. Peace wasn't loud. It simply existed when no one threatened to steal it. The phone in the kitchen rang once, then went silent. The new senior hotline they'd launched wasn't based out of her house anymore. It had its own small office downtown. One Victor had helped negotiate for a symbolic $1 lease. The first quarterly report had come in just this morning. 32 confirmed cases of elder fraud intercepted. 3 families reunited, 2 adult children arrested, and dozens more warned, protected, educated. Lila poked her head around the corner, holding a stack of index cards and a highlighter-streaked script. "Wish me luck," she said. "You don't need luck," Martha replied. "You've got truth and preparation. That's louder." Lila beamed. "Still, maybe wear the gold pin today?" Martha reached to her lapel and fastened the little veteran star that had once belonged to Gordon. "Go knock 'em dead." After Lila left, Carla stepped inside with a pitcher of iced tea and tracking dirt across the floor on purpose. "She's something, that one," Carla said. "And she's watching everything, Martha. Every move you made, she knows it mattered." "I didn't do it for applause," Martha replied. Carla chuckled. "Still, doesn't mean you shouldn't hear it." They sat on the porch together, sipping tea as the sun climbed higher. Children's laughter echoed from somewhere down the block. A mail truck passed with a familiar rattle. For the first time in years, Martha didn't flinch when it stopped in front of her house. Victor returned briefly with one last paper to sign, the sound of his pen scratching across the final line, like a period on a long, grueling sentence. As the sun dipped low, Lila returned, flushed and glowing. "We won," she said breathlessly. "The judges said my argument was sharp enough to leave bruises." Carla hooted with laughter. "That's your legacy speaking, right there." Martha leaned back, folding her hands across her stomach. "She buried comfort," she said softly, "but I buried her claims." And as the evening cooled and dusk painted shadows over the porch, Martha let the silence settle around her like armor finally set down. Her voice was steady when she said it. "My daughter whispered I was next. She was wrong. At my brother's funeral, my daughter whispered, 'Don't cry, you're next.' So I buried her comfort first.